Welcome back to another episode of RNT Fitness Radio. Today I'm joined by fellow RNT coach Kunal Makwana and Shalini Desai, one of our clients who's undergoing an incredible transformation right now. Shalini is based out in New York, and we decided to bring her on to talk about how she balances being a mother of two little girls, working long hours, and fitting in her own fitness goals. In this episode, we talk about the strategies she's used to overcome her biggest challenges during her transformation, why it's critical for parents to be leaders for their children when it comes to good health, and her top transformation tips for anyone undergoing a similar journey. This is an inspiring episode, and I know you're going to love it. Enjoy.
I always wanted to work with people. I liked being in the medical field. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to deal with like any of those ethical issues. And I researched and I really enjoyed, and I did some volunteer work when I was in high school. And I was interested in physio. I went to some clinics and I went to the hospitals, and I really enjoyed seeing the outcomes and then working with the patients. And I went into it from there. But it's a very competitive field and it was hard to get into. But I have no regrets. Like I ask all my friends now, looking back, if you could change your profession, and most people do. And I actually love what I do. I love working with people. I like making a difference. So I have no regrets.
Amazing. Yeah. Did you study in the UK to begin with, or were you always in the US?
Yeah. I was born and raised in the UK. I went to university in England, and I just decided, I have a twin sister, and we decided to move to the States on a whim to see if we would like it. And we ended up staying, and now we're both married with kids and a mortgage, and we're not going anywhere. So we're stuck in the UK.
Oh, amazing. So you met your husband in New York?
Yeah, it was like a sort of set up date thing. I was like over dating American guys. I was like, oh, this is not working out. I was packing around Africa. So I'm like, let me just go on this date to keep my mom happy. And I can use Africa as an excuse if I don't like him. Get out the bar. And he didn't want to do the whole dinner thing because he didn't know what I was like. And he had never dated an Indian girl. He had like stereotyped American Indian girls as being a certain way. Oh. So he any Indian girl. So he told his sister, if you set me up, she has to live in Manhattan and you have to butt out once you set me out. So we just went and I saw him, and we just had a good connection. The conversation flowed, and he seemed like a really nice guy, and we took it from there.
Oh, wow. So what's an American Indian stereotype then?
Yeah.
That's what I was interested in.
I don't want to I don't want to piss anyone off, but I feel like a lot of the women, the girls are like daddy's girls and get everything they want. You see these show scenes, and, they tend to be wealthier. So I feel like dad gets them whatever they want.
Yeah.
So they spoil.
That's okay. You can say what you like on here. Don't worry.
We're flagrant over here, so it's fine.
So that's it. That's really interesting. So you studied, where did you study in the UK?
At Brunel University.
Oh, okay. You studied physiotherapy there? Yeah.
Say that again.
You studied physiotherapy there?
Physiotherapy, yes.
Okay. And then just literally just on a whim going to America. That's pretty cool.
Did you have to do anything in America as well? Or like further for qualifications?
I had to do a license exam, which is basically like studying your whole degree in one exam. And then you have to learn all the American terms because they have different wording. They do different types of physio. They do a lot of like burn, skin to pediatrics. I hadn't done. I had to relearn. And then I actually, like 3 years ago, I went back to school and I got my doctorate in physical therapy. And that was very difficult. And that's when I put on a lot of the weight because I was studying late and snacking and sitting in front of the snacking cupboard.
Yeah. Would you say that was like the reason why you got into training, or were you always into training from a young age? Because I can imagine with a physiotherapy background, you were probably pretty active as a kid.
Yeah.
Right?
I was very active. I was never into competitive sports, but I always liked working out. But probably like most women, I used to do more classes like cardio, kickboxing and body conditioning, Zumba. And there was no real consistency. I never really lifted any heavy weights, but I like to jog. And I had my twin sister, so we used to always be very competitive and run together and work out together. And it wasn't until later on, like after hitting 30, that the weight starts piling on because my diet, I used to eat everything and anything. But in my 20s, it was fine because I had a good metabolism, but everything slows down as you get older.
Yeah, that's something that's really common. And a lot of people say, oh, it's my metabolism slow down, but it's probably also just the matter of moving a lot less. Did you find that you went from being very, very active, say when you're at university and in your mid to late 20s, and then all of a sudden you find yourself just not walking as much as you used to do, not doing as many active things? Or did you genuinely notice a shift in how your body felt in your 30s?
I think it was, I think I've always been somewhat fairly active. Like I'm never somebody that likes to sit stationary. So I'm not sure if that was it. Maybe I feel like it was just like my
your diet, right?
Catching up on me, like eating all the bad stuff and expecting to stay the same weight.
Talk about your why. What was your real deep why? And what value did you see in your why and what you would have achieved from achieving?
I think my why was that I had really felt like I'd lost myself. I was sort of just plodding along. I didn't really know who I was. And yes, I wanted the physical change. I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to look better. But I think for me also it was very mental. I just didn't feel good about myself. I was down. And I think that stemmed with a lot of my eating. I used to binge eat. It was comfort eating. I wasn't hungry. I just felt like, oh, let me just have the tub of ice cream, or let me go and have a donut after work. And then I felt terrible for doing it. So for me, it was really just cleansing my body, cleansing my mind. And also, the bonus is you lose weight and you look much better for it.
You touched on a few things there. One of the questions I want to ask is, because I know a lot of mothers, they worry that if they tend to be the main cooks in the house, for example.
Yes.
How did you prep? Say, were you looking after your husband's and children's food as well, or was your mother?
Oh yes.
So how was all that?
No. So I do. I am the main cook. My husband does not cook. He helps with the cleaning. But that was very hard because at the start I was like batch cooking and I was measuring everything out. But then I didn't want to make like 3 different meals. So I'd do one big meal and then sort of guesstimate the amount, the portions. So it wasn't 100% accurate. But now that I've sort of got the hang of it, I know what like 100 pounds looks like of meat or of chicken breast or of minced meat. And I do like to spice things up with my food. So it was just finding different ways of cooking. My children, I'd make them separately. But it was hard because I'm forever in the kitchen because I'm cooking for myself. I'll have to cook for my husband. I'd have to cook the rice. And so that was a bit of a challenge. But once you get a few set recipes down, I use the RNT website and I looked at your biryani recipe, your chicken tikka recipe. You can just repeat those. So that was really helpful.
Did you incorporate those sorts of recipes with your husband and children as well?
Yes. So my husband loved it because he was getting healthy food. He's on his own little fitness kick. My children would eat it. I would just cut out the spice for them. So yeah, I would make the same thing really, some of the meals, not all the time because they're picky eaters.
I mean, so essentially you're creating an extra benefit there just by default, right?
Yeah.
You're improving yourself, but you're creating that domino effect within your family whereby your husband and your children are better off for what you're doing as well, right?
And I realized from this diet, like the lack of protein in my diet that I had previously, it was probably like 70% carb dominated. And then the rest was probably fruit and vegetables. And I had barely 10, 20% of protein in my diet. So now I realize the value of having protein, especially if you want to build muscle and stay full for longer. Mm-hmm. Having protein in my diet, that really helps.
Yeah, I mean, the analogy I always use when I give seminars is one of the benefits of protein for fat loss is the satiating effect. And the example I say is, what would keep you fuller? Like a chicken breast or steak, or would a sandwich keep you fuller? Because the sandwich is 70% carb, and after 60 to 90 minutes, you're going to be pretty hungry again, right? Whereas if you have a decent-sized chicken breast or a steak or anything that's protein-based, you're going to be full for at least 3-4 hours going forwards, which makes dieting for a fat loss goal a lot easier and compliance a lot higher.
Exactly. Like when I meal prep, when I eat on time, when I eat the right foods, I don't feel as hungry. Definitely beneficial. It's only when I skip a meal or I didn't have my protein for when I should have had it, that's when I start to feel hungry. So I realized the importance of the structure and having the 5 meals that Kunal had set out for me.
Yeah, let's touch on that. So, Kunal, do you want to talk about how you set the initial diet and training up? Fortunately,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty simple. What you said is like, hey, let's implement the basics for her. When looking at application form, it was a lot like, okay, a diet all over the place, not enough protein. So I thought, let's make that number one priority and implement a structure for her. And initially, I was like, let's implement this plan for at least a month, and then really, really get organized with this. Start meal prepping, start creating good habits around you. Because obviously we knew about her binging tendencies beforehand. So I said, let's implement this program, see how you do. And she, right off the bat, just started implementing this program. And she just saw changes quite quickly as well. It was like literally a pound a week she was losing. And then from there, it was just small tweaks and changes. Didn't really have to change a lot.
What was the first? Was it more than a pound a week to begin with, or?
For me, I realized, initially I was losing weight really rapidly, and that was amazing, and it just kept me going. But then there is a point in the program when you start to plateau, and I just continued plodding through, and all of a sudden, people at work would give me compliments. My twin sister said she didn't recognize my face because I'd lost my double chin, so that was nice. And actually, prior to starting RNT, I had hired a personal trainer at the gym, and I did 20 sessions with him, and I didn't look any different. I didn't lose any weight, even though I was doing resistance training with him. And he even stopped me at the gym to say I had to do a double take because I didn't recognize you. So that was like, I was like, wow, because I didn't see it after, because you just going through the motions. And it's when I started noticing, when other people started to notice that I had lost weight, that I was like, oh, this is really working.
Wow. So Shalini, what was the difference between what we were doing and, say, the personal trainer that you're having in the gym? What was the...
Oh, a huge difference. Your RNT is research-based. It's progressive. It's the progressive overload, which makes a big difference. It's staying accountable. I felt like he was haphazardly putting me on different machines, and I was working out hard, like it was a struggle, but it would be different machines each time. He didn't really listen to my goals. He didn't really get to know me. I think it was a lack of consistency. So I like that RNT is very consistent. You progress, you write down what you do, and it incorporates diet.
Yeah, the last thing is a big factor that most personal trainers are missing out on, right?
Because prior to RNT, which I missed out this whole point, I was working out 6 days a week. I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning. I was running 3 to 5 miles. I was doing strength training 3 times a week on my own. That didn't look any different. I couldn't say if I was any stronger. And that before picture of me was actually after I'd been working out for 6 months. So God knows what the one before that looked like.
I mean, before this podcast recording, I actually looked back over your application form just to refresh my memory of what it was that you were doing before. And I remember reading that you said you were doing 15,000 steps already a day.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were training 6 days a week, but you weren't seeing any results, which is outstanding, because the amount of effort that you're putting into the gym, but not seeing.
But I was also eating donuts and paprin lord and all this Indian food, and that's it. So
talk us through a day in the life of this. Like when you're working at the hospital, how does your day look when you're fitting in the gym? Your steps,
what's your hours?
Your diet, everything. You're looking after the kids. Talk us through one of those typical days.
So on the days I'm working, I do get up at 5 o'clock because I have a 6 a.m. train, and I drive to work, and then I get the train. And throughout work, I'm lucky I work in a hospital, so I'm not at a desk job. So I take the stairs, I walk. So even before work, I get to work at 7:30, and I walk. I would say for 25 minutes. So that way I get at least 5,000 steps before I reach work. And once I'm at work, I'm walking throughout the day. I'm taking the stairs. And then after work, I have, a 5:30 train. I don't get home till 7. And then that's when I usually, after feeding the kids, putting them to bed, it's around 8 o'clock at this time. And then I would go to the gym at that time. So it's hard. And then I utilize my weekends. So Kunal only has me working out 3 days a week, which is half of what I was doing before. So so I work out on the weekends or I work out in the evenings, and I get my steps in throughout the day. And if I don't get my steps in, I just stand when I'm watching TV and walk in the spot for like an hour, 2 hours. So my husband calls me a gerbil. He thinks I'm funny because I'm like just standing there, like running or jogging on the spot or walking on the spot because now my step count is 20,000. Gunal upped it to 20,000, which is hard to fit in.
But you get it in, right?
I get it in.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah.
Trying to strength train after being away for 15 hours is quite something.
Yeah.
I always find it tough to train in the evening. So
I really enjoy the strength training program. To this day, I've not missed one workout. My diet's been up and down, but I feel like I've been very consistent at the gym, and I love all your articles about, negatives, reps, how to progress, how to pyramid. So I really pay attention to all the articles. I feel the research that you guys put out and articles you put out is really amazing. I can resonate. The podcast. I always give myself a power word when I'm at the gym. So I'm always saying before I start something, I always say like execute or you're going to kill this. And I think it's a lot psychological, but that pushes you through the last few reps. And I will be like, focus on form. And I'll tell myself all these things. Or like, I'll try a few of the reps without resistance to make sure I'm engaging the right muscles before I start with the actual weights. So I feel it's an education process from everything you've taught. I try and retain it. And sometimes I go back and reread or re-listen to, I like Akash Desai's podcast. I felt like he had a lot of useful information there. So I listened to that a couple of times and I took notes. So, you've got to study.
A lot of my clients said the same thing as well. They love that podcast.
Oh, they do.
I think that's amazing. I mean, I think because you've immersed yourself in all aspects of what we're trying to do, I think that's why your results speak for themselves, right? Because you've not only followed what Kunal's laid out for you, but you've also educated yourself. And,
I think as a client, you have to educate yourself, and that's making the biggest difference. Is doing the reading and doing the work, and it works. It works, people. You just have to stick to it. You might not see it right away. You might see it later on. But I remember you saying, just check all the boxes and one day it will all come together. And that's exactly what happened to me. I just checked all the small boxes and one day it just all came together.
One thing you touched on there is you said your training was always consistent, but your diet was a bit up and down. Talk us through the challenges you had with your diet, even during the transformation so far.
So I feel like I'm a big foodie. I like variety. I like tasty food. I love my carbs. So initial 4 months, I think I was very strict and didn't really cheat at all. But after I started to lose the weight, I was like, I can have a bit of this, I can have a bit of that. And it started to waver. So when I've been logging my weight daily on my MyFitnessPal, so when I look at my chart, it's downward sloping, but there's little spikes throughout. And I think it's like, sometimes you just feel like you're going to have that cookie or you're going to have the salt and vinegar crisp, which is my downfall. But I also remember what you guys say is, or with Gunal, sorry, it's very noisy. With Gunal being accountable, that helps and gets me back on track.
I think there's a really important point you said there is that the downward trend is the most important thing. That you're going to get the fluctuations, and women experience the fluctuations a lot more than men do. So the fact that you will be able to look past the daily fluctuations and focus on that long-term trend helped a lot psychologically. Because if you get bogged down on the daily, then you can start feeling demotivated and question why you're doing everything. But if you sit back and think, okay, let's look at what the graph's saying in the long run, then the progress is there for you to be motivated by.
Right. And I would have the odd day where it was my birthday and I went out for dinner and Gunnar would tell me have protein, drink 3 liters of water before you go out. So I would follow those rules. And yes, I would put on some weight, but then I know I could dial it back down within that week where I would buffer and have less carbs or reduce the amount I was eating to make up for that.
Were you using you mentioned MyFitnessPal? Were you using that the app to kind of work around social occasions?
Yes.
Or was it just to track the weight?
I did use
both,
it to. Yeah, I did it for both, to track my weight and for social occasions, for things that were not on my plan that Gunnar had set out for me. So often I'd be eating foods that were not accountable for in my Excel spreadsheet. So then I would use my Fitness Pal to see the calories and the fat content and the carb content.
One of the questions that a lot of people ask us is, I've got a family, I'm working long hours, but I've also got a really busy social life, and I don't want to become a recluse. And you shouldn't become a recluse. Yeah. What advice do you give to balance that extra pillar into your life?
So when I actually started the program, I totally did become a recluse because I gave up alcohol. And I just felt like I didn't want to put myself in those situations. And it's such a social stigma if you don't drink. Like, people look at you a different way and they treat you a different way. And I didn't want to go to the bar with my friends and just have like a soda water. But now I totally feel comfortable. I go out and I'm in the routine, and it's become a habit for me not to have that. And I will go and have a Diet Coke, or I'll just have a soda water. But I can still socialize and go out with my friends without having the wine or the vodka or whatever else I would have normally had.
How did your friends react to you doing this program?
Most of my friends were supportive. I did have a few friends. I had one friend who was like, no way, you're not going to do that. I told her I wanted a 4-pack. She's like, oh, you've had kids, you're never going to get a 4-pack. But I felt it gave me more of that drive to be like, I'm going to show you. And I feel like you want to cut out the negative people in your life. So if people are not being supportive, what do they say? You can choose your friends, you can't choose your family. So I surround myself by people who are supportive and want the best for me.
Yeah, social support is huge. Without the right social support, it can be tough to accomplish any goal that you set yourself.
Yeah. And most people have been amazed. It's been hard at work because I work in a busy hospital. There's always cake. It's someone's birthday. It's a celebration, a baby shower, and there's desserts galore every single day. And just now everyone knows that I'm not going to eat it. They forced me to have cake on my birthday. I had like 2 bites.
That you did. Hopefully Kunal gave you that allowance as well.
She tracked that cake, hopefully.
I did.
I told her to track it, yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Kunal, let's ask you, like, what would you say is, what would you say were the certain traits that Shalini had that were responsible for her transformation outside of the consistency that she put in on a daily basis? Like, what did you see that you really brought that stood out to you and that other clients can learn from?
So she initially really asked loads of questions, and I encourage everyone to ask questions, because that's when you're going to know whether you're actually doing things correctly or not. You don't want to do things 4 weeks later down the line and say, hey, I'm not sure if I did this correctly, but you just ask that straight away. And I remember we set up a phone call, FaceTime. I think it was 2 days after I sent the program to her, and she went through all the questions. She had about 25 questions. We went through all those questions, and she said, okay, I'm ready to do this. And then she always kept updating me everything. Anything on WhatsApp, hey, I'm going out. And I encourage everyone to just keep communication open. If you have a bad day, don't turn that into a bad week and just go away and say, hey, I'm sorry, I couldn't check in. I had a really bad week, but just message me beforehand and say, hey, I've had a bad day today. What can I do tomorrow? And it's that simple. And she was really consistent in that sense. And she asked real questions. And she took the program into good strides, basically.
Yeah. Having that open-ended communication is huge. I think you might have opened yourself up to a barrage of questions coming your way, though. So you might
Well, I feel like if you're not honest with yourself, I feel the main thing for me joining RNT was having that accountability factor. Yeah. So knowing that I was accountable to Kunal and knowing that I would have to answer to him, it kept me right on track. And I feel like if you cheat, because I have other friends on the program who are afraid to speak to him because they're like, oh my God, I ate that. I'm like, well, you're only lying to yourself. I'm like, you need to let him know, because you have to be honest, because if you're cheating yourself. He's here to help you. And it is almost like that disappointing parent. So you're like, I would have to tell him I ate this, but it's good because he's like, okay, it's in the past, moving on, do this. And I'm like, okay, I have a plan. I'm going to move on, forget the past.
I remember when, if I knew she had a bad week, I just knew, because she wouldn't message me for a couple of days. Yeah. And then I'll be like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? And then she wouldn't message me for another 3-4 days after that. And then I'll get a whole email saying, I've had this bad week. It's okay, let's just schedule a call in and we'll discuss what's going on. And then After that, it just always good. Yeah.
Well, it just proves that she's human, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people will think, oh, okay, so Shalini just gave up her life, and she probably just lives like a fitness dream, but it's far from that, right?
No, it's far from that.
It's
It's
nothing
not.
like lucky.
I struggle with it every day. Like, I still love food. I still have to, I drink a lot of black coffee now. I probably drink like 4 or 5 cups a day. I chew gum. I drink lots of water. So just finding ways around it, eating more vegetables, celery sticks, just to have something to snack on.
Because you mentioned
peanut butter is my downfall, though. I do love my peanut butter.
Peanut butter.
Yes.
You mentioned like you've had the binge eating tendencies in the past, right, with both food and drink.
Yes.
What would you say what would trigger you, and like how have you curbed it, and how do you deal with it now?
I think I think it probably started with my mum. She grew up in Africa, from Uganda, and she was always about finishing what's on your plate, never wasting food. So I think I had that mentality. And like I said, I'm an identical twin. So we were very, we always compared growing up, and I was always known as the fat twin. I was chubbier growing up with the scar, because I have a scar on my head. So they would tell us apart by me being the fat one with the scar. So I think I had all these body image issues, and I never really felt comfortable with myself. And I think I used to eat, as comfort eating, like I said before, not because I was hungry. So that's something I still struggle with today. I think you just have to make a conscious decision to curb your eating. I think giving up alcohol has been the best thing I've done, because I never drank regularly, but when I would go to happy hours, 1 drink would turn into 5 drinks, and then I'd have a hangover for 2 days. Now I have no hangovers. I can wake up early, take my kids to the park. So that's made a big difference. I mean, I still will have a glass of wine every so often, very rarely, but it will be like 1. And that's made a big difference. But with food, it's a day-to-day thing. Like I have to work at just curbing it in and sticking to my diet plan.
The thing you said about finishing your food on your plate, that's something I've always experienced myself as well. Not that
Same.
I think it's a cultural thing, right?
Yeah, not wasting it. Like I don't want, and then it's my having kids, and they barely eat, so then they have food, and I was back then I was finishing their food, so I'd eat my meal, and then I'd be eating their leftovers too. And my husband's like, "What are you doing? You can't do this." I'm like, "Yep, what am I doing?" So now I'm okay with throwing food away. It has to be.
Do you think it's from Africa this comes from?
I get that.
I think it's the Indian, like you said, culturally, the Indian mentality. My mother said, she tells us stories how they used to share half a banana for lunch. So she didn't grow up with much. And it's not about like wasting anything. And we are lucky that we have the resources, to be able to afford whatever we need.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a cultural thing that's been passed through the generations. Right? Our generation has kind of thought, okay, this is the normal way to be. But because now, especially now, because we're not as active, and because we have it in abundance, there's no real lid on it, right? You could just carry on and on.
No, exactly. And that's what's leading to the diabetes, the cardiac problems in the Indian society.
How important do you think it is for parents to be the leaders in society with good health and habits for their children, for the next generation?
I think it's super important. I always tell my girls they have to have I don't say protein. I'm like, you have to eat chicken if you want to be strong. So I encourage them to eat like broccoli and chicken and vegetables. I don't want them to grow up being diabetic or having heart issues or relying on pills. Like a lot of my uncles are like, it's fine, I'm going to eat what I want, but I have a pill for cholesterol. I have a pill for hypertension. And that's no way to live, because as a therapist, I see people having strokes. Like now with new medicine, we can keep you alive for longer, but what state are you going to be? You're going to have a stroke. You're not going to be able to use one side of your body. You're going to end up having diabetes and having an ulcer and having an amputation. So we can keep you alive. It's not like you can eat what you want, pop pills, and then you're going to just die. You're not going to just die. You're going to end up with an injury or a disability and have your family care for you. So I don't want that burden. I don't want them to be that burden. I don't want to be that burden on my family.
What tips would you give for parents in terms of preparing their kids' meals? What kind of tips?
Well,
Kind of meals?
first of all, I really cut out on sugar and snacks as much as possible. Like, I do have it in the house because, yes, they do want to have the cookies and they want to have crisps. But I feel mainly that the whole goal is to have their real meal, to have their protein, to have their vegetable, have rice or rotli or whatever it may be. And then after, yes, they can have something as a treat. But we don't do dessert in our house every day. It's like special occasions. I don't give sugary drinks to my children. I really try and avoid sugar.
Was this before RNT, or was this just after RNT? Things have changed.
I would say more after RNT, definitely. Yeah. I just don't. But I walk down, and now it's changed the way I shop in the supermarket too. Because I'll walk down aisles and I'll like want to pick something up. I'm like, no, they don't need this, and I'll put it back again. So I've definitely changed the way I shop. I have less junk food in the house now.
I remember I had the same as well. When I grew up, you'd be horrified to know what I used to eat. I remember breakfast used to be cereals. I love my mom, but obviously she used to give me this never think about it. So it'd be cereals, and then lunch would be a Nutella sandwich with a Kit Kat. I would come back home and have cake, milk, crisps, and then dinner would be like your normal dal and rotli and all that stuff. And I look back and I was like, wow, like my nutrition could have been a lot better. But I realized like parents set a tone, and it's highly important that they kind of lead example as well.
Yeah, and I feel in America especially, everything is so processed. Like coming from the UK, moving to America, the cheese is orange. There's no need for cheese to be orange. I read the labels and it's just food coloring. So way more preservatives, way more food coloring in American food. Like they have the cereals, I'm sure you know, Lucky Charms and Fruit Loops. Like it's disgusting. Nothing ever molds. You can put bread in the fridge for like 2 months and it will not have mold on it. So everything is just overly processed too. So you're not eating real food. So I enjoy the fact that RNT has got me cooking again. And I know what's in my food. And I use a lot of vegetables. I pick a way to make my protein bigger. So if I make something, I will add like mushrooms and celery and green peppers. So that will bulk up my meat to make me fuller, but in a healthier way.
Kind of what you said over there about the diet example you had. That's like it's purely just lack of education. It's not anything like that. It's purely a lack of education in the previous generation. And it's something that the more we can help people who are in a position of power, like Shalinis, who can influence that next generation, the better.
And I think it's convenience too. Like I know my mother was working, and then she had 3 of us, and my dad was at work all the time. So it was easy to give a packet of crisps for lunch with a Ribena. I had the same diet, and it was bhat rice with ghee or butter and yogurt. We'd eat that for dinner.
I mean, my diet was usually a panda chocolat for breakfast, or a waffle, those waffles with milk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Then for lunch would be a sandwich with chili and lemon crisps.
Oh, yes, I love those.
Yeah, everyone had sandwich.
And then we come back, and for dinner it'd be, like you just said, dal bhat or any sort of Indian home-cooked food. Yeah. And then if it was
but even the Indian food is overly cooked, so you lose the nutrients. So yes, you're having vegetables, but because they've cooked so much, it's not as fresh, I guess. Not as nutritional dense.
Yeah, so 3 days a week was Indian food, and then Wednesday night would be Italian, so any pizza, pasta, whatever. And then Friday night would be a trip down to McDonald's on the high street.
When was the last time you had McDonald's?
And then McDonald's shut down.
Oh my God. I remember going for a cheeseburger thinking it was vegetarian.
It's crazy looking back, because I couldn't imagine having that diet now, right? I'd feel horrible. I'd feel to focus on anything or function.
No protein.
Yeah, it's zero protein. It's just pure. It's like you said, 70% carbs, probably 25% fat and 5% protein. and things you never feel full or satiated. You can't focus on anything. You just
that's why it's the Indian skinny fat was there.
Yeah, that's where it's all come from. I'm just thinking about it now, thinking, wow.
Well, I thought about it, I was like, wow, where's my food? Where's the real food here? And there's no protein. And my protein used to be like a takeaway. It would be like a chicken curry takeaway as my protein source. Even that, it's not great.
Well, we did have lentils, in dal and in mug, so that was good.
Yeah. Great. So one thing I want to ask you is, what are your 3 biggest tips for transformation tips for people starting on a similar journey? So they're not coming towards the end or the middle. They're like just about to start now, and they're like, yeah, I want to achieve this, but I don't think I can. What would you tell them?
I would say the number one, which you always harp on about too, is knowing your why. Like, you really have to have that drive. It has to come from within. I've had people emailing me saying, oh, my daughter needs to lose weight. I'm like, well, what does your daughter want to do? Does she want to lose weight? And it's not even about the losing weight. Like, really know why you're going to embrace this and why you want to go ahead with this. So that would be number one. Number 2 would be being consistent. So checking all the boxes, getting your steps in, getting your workout in, being consistent with the diet. That would be my drinking the water. That's really important too. Like, don't miss out on any of those little boxes. And number 3, I would say, is planning. So everyone's busy. We're working, we're mothers, your husbands, whatever you do in life, planning is going to stop you from failing. If you are hungry, but you have your food in the fridge, which is already portioned out, it's so much easier than like reaching for a snack food. So I guess that those would be my big 3.
Just had a thought. Do you think one of the reasons why a lot of women would benefit from something like this is it helps them reestablish their identity?
Yes, it does. I'm definitely more confident. I'm more social. I have more people coming up to me, talking to me now that maybe would not have. I think it's helped me a lot. I've always felt I was a confident person, but this has given me a whole new level of confidence.
There's a lot of women, I think it happens to guys as well, right? But I know women get lost in their identity as a mother and in their kids and in their
yeah.
husband.
And my husband's super happy. He's been supportive, and he's noticed the change in me too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, am I getting a bit too cocky? And he's like, no, I love it. So he thinks it's great.
That's brilliant.
Refinding that fire inside of you.
Yeah. He says he feels like he's cheating on his wife now.
Oh, wow.
That's a good point.
That could be the code card for this.
Yeah.
Amazing. What are you working towards now? This journey's not over yet. So
my next goal, which has been very difficult, is going to be slimming down. So I still have to lose quite a bit of weight, another 15 pounds. And then I want to start getting ripped. So I know you've mentioned in the past that women don't always want to look bulky, but I've seen the videos of Suki and Minnow, other RNT clients, doing the resisted chin-ups. And in my mind, that's been my goal. Like, I want to be one of those women. Right now, I don't even know if I could do one, but I know I'm going to get there, and I'm going to post a video of me doing not just one. I want to do like a set, maybe a couple of sets of resisted chin-ups. So I want to bulk up. I want to get lean. I want to get ripped. I want to take it to the next level.
Amazing. I mean, one thing you could do this week is just to see where you're at with the chin up. Is going to the gym, just jump to the top, or use a box to get to the top, and just see how your negative chin ups are.
Okay.
It's the next time you're in the gym. Just
I'm almost too afraid to try. I want to get the green light from Kunal. So, because he has, by the way, he's never changed my program. So for all this time that I've been doing the same exact program, and it's been working. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. But that I do want to add the chin-ups to my program.
I will add that.
Try the negative and see where you're at.
Okay.
And then you can use that as a kind of a progress marker as to how far you have to go. Because I've got some certain benchmarks. So once you let me know where you're at, just drop us an email afterwards to see and let me know what you can do on it, and then we can see it.
And I have had shoulder injuries. I've been working through a left chronic shoulder injury, which I've been doing additional exercises, has been adding to my time. So my right side is always stronger, and that's been hard when I've been progressing the weights, because I know I can do more with the right, but the left holding me back. So I have to almost wait for my left to catch up.
You said you've got 15 pounds to go. How many pounds down are you now?
Overall, I think I'm down 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And now I can't believe how much I used to weigh. So I've gone from a US size 12 to a size 4. And it's been amazing going shopping, because normally things don't fit me and I'm struggling to do the button. And now it's like, oh, it's too loose. I have to go down a size. And I'm like shocked. And I'm like, am I really this size? And then I'll try a few different things. I'm like, wow, I'm really this size. So that's been amazing.
That's really good. Let's finish off.
And not having that pouch as a woman.
As I say, let's finish off on a rapid fire. Rapid
Okay.
fire questions.
Okay.
First one is, so you say you dropped the next 15 pounds, finish this hard diet. What's your go-to cheat meal or meal off plan?
Oh, I love it.
Which one?
Spaghetti meatballs. That's the other one.
Was it spaghetti meatballs?
Spaghetti meatballs or dosa.
Oh, dosa. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. I didn't think of that one. What's your favorite place you've traveled to, or what's your next travel destination? Sorry.
Well, my favorite place I would say is Patagonia, and my next place I would like to do is like Eastern Europe.
Okay.
Patagonia. That sounds cool. Whereabouts did you go there? Did you do any of the treks?
Where in South? I've spent a lot of time backpacking. I did like 7 months in Asia, Australia, New Zealand, 4 months in Africa, East and South, and then like 6 months in South America. So from Ecuador all the way down to the tip of Chile up to Brazil.
Wow. Did you do that alone?
And I did that with a friend from the UK, and I've done some with my sisters and my friends. So with different people. And then I moved to Hawaii with my husband. After we moved to America, we quit work and we moved to Hawaii for 6 months.
Wow,
But
so
my
big
license
travel.
wouldn't. Yeah, I love to travel.
So what's your top 3 places you've traveled to? You said Patagonia is number 1.
So I like Patagonia. I love New Zealand, I would say. And I love Cambodia.
What struck you out about Patagonia? Because you said that really quickly. You've traveled a lot.
I think the glaciers, it doesn't feel like you're on Earth, just seeing the glaciers and the white in contrast with the aqua blue of the water. And knowing that it's not going to be there because of what we're doing to our environment, I hope my kids will be alive to see all of this stuff. And that was one of my goals. So for 40, my goal was to be fit at 40 and lose the weight. But for my 30th, it was to climb Kilimanjaro. So I did that with my husband. When I turned 30, we climbed Kilimanjaro together.
Awesome.
What's for the 50th?
I don't know. That's the one.
That's still a long way to go.
It might take me 10 years to get those chin ups.
And the final question, who should we have on the podcast next?
I like having more women, so I think you should have one of the women. Like, I wouldn't mind having Minal on there next, because I've reached out to her about complimenting her on how impressed I am. So I think having somebody who's in the strength phase of it after the initial weight loss phase. So I would like to have another woman, a mother, who's working towards building up her muscles.
Great idea. I'll contact Minal and get it booked in.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to advertise, or any place you'd want people to visit you, or is there anything you'd like to plug?
No, I would just advertise you guys, really. I think you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for helping me. You've definitely transformed my life. So
Amazing. Absolute pleasure.
Love it.
Thank you, guys.
If you enjoyed today's episode with Shalini Desai and you feel like you can relate to it, or you know people that will be able to relate to it, please share it with your family and friends, and leave us a 5-star review and hit subscribe. More information, please visit www.rntfitness.co.uk, and you can follow us on Instagram at rnt_fitness. Thanks for listening.